When the time.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Scars to Stars. As you know, Scars to Stars is that program we have designed to celebrate the successes, the life, the achievements, the battles, the struggles, the scars of women, but women that have gone on to go beyond their struggles, in spite of their struggles, to have gone on to conquer, to achieve, and to remove barriers and break through ceilings that have been put against women. Today, we are with a woman, a Zambian woman, that has gone on to defy even death, I will say that, because she has gone on to defy terminal issues and gone on to stand up for other people. She'll be telling her story today. We're privileged to have, she has survived and overcome cancer twice, and she will be telling us of her Scars to Stars. We want to welcome to Scars to Stars, UD Soko. Judy, thank you for giving us your time to share your story today.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. We do understand health challenges, so I'm sure the viewers will appreciate why you would put on your mask. I'm sure everybody wants to see who is this heroine, but for them to know, so while we go through, you understand that that's a world champion fighter, and she's still going on. You will tell us about your new drive of healthy living and all that, but tell us please, Judy, who are you? What is it that brings us to talk to you? Something must be special about you that we are here. Tell us, who is Judy, and why did they even call you Judy? We'd like to know.
Thanks so much. Yeah, the story of my name. That's always a good way to introduce myself.
The icebreaker.
A good icebreaker, because often people even ask me, how do you pronounce your name?
I did that.
Yes? And how many versions of my name have I heard?
Yeah.
It's pronounced Judy, but I've heard Undi, I've heard Edith, I've heard Udi, I've heard you die. I said, okay. You know, back in the day, it kind of bothered me, but now, at 55 years, I say yes. I mean, I will correct you if you say, are you Edith? I'll say, I'm Udi. But if you say Udi, I'll just say, yeah, okay, because sometimes, you know, the variations are slight, and that's the way things are. The story of my name. I was born on the 11th of November, 1965, in Washington, D.C., on the same day that the former Prime Minister of Southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, the late Ian Smith, declared a unilateral declaration of independence from the British. So he declared a UDI. Now, okay, so that's one part of it. But the other part is my father was from the Eastern Province, Ingoni by tribe. And for many Zambians, we know that Ingonis, Easterners, have a tendency of naming their children peculiar names. Okay. And some, you know, due to historical events. So when you add the fact that my father was from Eastern Province, and there was a historical event that happened on the day I was born, you put that together and you get at least the initials UDI. And I'm sharing this story as told by my mother, because she said he went to the hospital, the following morning after she had given birth. He was in America, as I said, Zambia's first ambassador.
Yeah.
And he said, Mommy, guess what has happened? She said, what? Oh, Ian Smith has declared a UDI, and explained what all that meant. She said, oh, okay. And therefore, I'm naming our daughter UDI.
Wow.
Then my mother, in her wisdom, suggested he added an E
Okay.
to make it a name, UD, rather than just letters. My father agreed. However, I discovered many years later that on my birth certificate, it's written UDI Soko. So in the family,
Wow.
I go by either UD or UDI if they want to wind me up.
Okay.
Or if they want to wind me up even more, they'll call me unilateral. Yeah. So that's the story of my name. So, and
Iconic, very iconic,
Exactly.
and very unique. There are no two names ever in the world like that.
tell me about it. And I don't have a middle name. All I do now, I gave one to myself a few years ago.
Okay.
But that's will come later.
Okay.
But on my birth certificate, I am UDI Soko.
So you were born in America
Yes.
to Zambia's first ambassador to the United States. What was it like growing up outside Zambia, and what was it like coming back?
I spent the first 4 to 5 years abroad. We were in America, then we went to Russia, USSR in those days, Kenya, and the United Kingdom. Then we came back to Zambia. And unfortunately, I don't have too much recollection of
Okay.
my very early years abroad.
You were very young at
Yeah,
that
I was
time.
very young, so it's a blur, to be honest.
Did you get an American passport because you were born there? Or the diplomatic work stopped you from having that?
No. I inquired, but according to the USA Constitution, children of diplomats are considered to be born on their
Zambian
country's
soil.
soil. Yeah,
That's
so
right.
I was considered to be born on Zambian soil.
see.
Yes.
I see.
And in fact, I was told at the American embassy, if your parents were anything else, even illegal immigrants,
Okay.
we would have given you
Yeah.
a citizenship or a passport, a
Yeah.
citizenship. But because they were diplomats, that is the one exception.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they had immunity, they're not subject to the laws and
Exactly.
all that.
Exactly.
So you came back to Zambia, and how did it go for you? What was childhood like? And your parents are back now.
Yes. It was. I think I had an average childhood.
Okay.
It was. Because amongst my peers, I didn't think it was anything extraordinary. I went, had good education. Last born of, at that time we were 5 siblings. I wasn't spoiled. I don't think so.
Okay.
And I spent the first 6 years of grade school, grade 1 to grade 6, as a day scholar. And then
So you basically came back here to start school?
Yes.
Because you were just about 4 or 5 then.
Yeah. Although yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then from those days we called it grade 7 up to Form 5. Now it's grade 12.
Yeah.
I was in a boarding school, so I spent actually a lot of time away from my parents,
Oh,
from my
really?
parents' home, because back in the day, and we're talking about 1977. To 1980. When did I finish? From 1977 onwards, I should say. I was a boarder, and at that time, when you go to school in January, it's January, February, March, 3 straight months you're at boarding school. Then you come back home for a month, April. Then May you're back at school, and we didn't have cell phones and all that. You used to
So only
communicate.
3 months at home in a year.
Exactly. Oh, I think 4.
Okay, 4
Yeah,
months.
4. Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, and since grade 7, and I think I was 12, 13. That's it. I always say I left my parents' home thereafter. Then I went to
Okay.
university, worked, and that was it.
Did your father, being a diplomat, influence and inform you going into diplomatic service?
I don't think so consciously, but I like to believe it was
Synchronicity.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think so, because when I put the pieces together, there is no way it was humanly possible the way things fell into place.
Yes.
Especially that you're not consciously doing that.
Yes.
It was God's hand.
Okay.
And it's interesting that my last posting was in the United Kingdom, and my father was also Zambia's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom.
Wow.
And when you go to the mission, the Zambian mission in the UK, there's a wall where they have put pictures of all the high commissioners, and I saw my father's portrait. I even borrowed that portrait, and I took some pictures, holding it together with my niece and my mom. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
So what was it like for you walking in those steps? As in, he walked there, and you walked in his steps serving. Are you the only other diplomat in the family?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are something special in the family, therefore.
Absolutely.
If you walked in his footsteps.
I did, yeah. And I'm a strong believer in the power of the spirit.
Okay.
And the spirit from God, but also the vibe or the spirit, the human spirit. So I believe my father's spirit, his own right, also walked with me along this journey. Yeah. Okay. And he was very happy that I became a diplomat.
I'm sure he must have been.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up as a woman in the 70s, 60s, 70s, going to school, 70s, 80s? What was it like for you as a woman? And what informed the things you went to study?
How do I answer that question? Perhaps I'll say what I always wanted to study, if I can answer it that way. I wanted to do two things. First, I wanted to be a physiotherapist.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, but I had that desire.
Okay.
But that fell through the cracks along the way. Then later I decided I wanted to be a psychologist. And I was really very keen, up to Form 5 or grade 12 now. And I remember sharing this desire with my late sister, who was a nurse. And for some reason, she said to me, I don't think that would be the most, I don't know if I can say lucrative career to pursue, because I don't know, maybe she had not had a good experience with psychologists, or there weren't that many then. Even now, it's not a profession that is really appreciated. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think she was concerned about that. So she discouraged me. So when I went to university, I said, okay, so it's not going to be psychology as my major. So I decided to major in public administration, but I minored in psychology. I still wanted to have that tie with being a psychologist.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
What would you say, because you're going back now, you're doing your master's in psychology and counseling, but at that time you wanted to do it. Do you think, looking back now, looking at the girl child growing up, you mentioned that your sister had looked at it and said, maybe pecuniarily it may not be the right thing because maybe they don't pay so much. Should we raise our children to go after what is popular, or to go after what they want to become? What is innate, what is they're passionate about? Where would you think? I'm just tapping into that, because a lot of us today, we choose something, a career or something, and down the road you find that you're not happy. So most people, it's not what they read in school they're doing. They left that away, and they're finding fulfillment and joy and pleasure. So somebody watching today, what would you say to that? Should they look at what is paying, or should they be bold enough to stand up for what they believe they want to do?
I think I'll answer that three ways. First of all, when I finished university, I completed university, and I started working. And my first job was with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And when I was hired, the hiring officer said to me, "We are taking you on because of your public administration, not your psychology, because we don't need the psychology. But human being is got a psyche, so that's not quite correct. But I understood what where he was coming from. But psychology is in every environment,
In everything.
In everything, literally in everything. Yes. You don't have to be a psychologist, but there's psychology at play.
That's right.
The different aspects.
Right. That's right.
So her decision, or her advice rather, for me to pursue, not to pursue psychology, at least as a major, actually was the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because had I not been working for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I wouldn't have been sent abroad, I wouldn't have gone for treatment and so on, as that will come later. Or maybe another way would have emerged, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll say, so that's the one thing. The second thing is, it's great to pursue what it is that your heart desires ultimately. I think where the challenge lies is getting paid for what it is that you love to do. There are many artists, yeah, whether I'm a singer or I draw or I'm a good dancer. I know some of these creative careers, but to get, paid reasonably for what it is that you do is the challenge. So I think that is where the big issue lies. So I may be the greatest painter out there. Now, because of the environment that I'm in and what I'm seeing, immediately, I'm saying, you know what, let me pursue a career in accounting. Yeah. And then I can maybe paint as a side hustle. So I think there's that balance which one needs to find, to find and say, I have this desire, I love, this is what I want to do, I want to pursue it and save the world almost. But how do I sustain myself? How do I get paid? And that, therein lies the challenge. So
therefore it is good to have good counselors, people that would help you make the right decisions.
Exactly.
And not necessarily kill because you're going back to do it and you're doing it now. But it was good to have that counsel then.
Yes.
And that paid off because they say we're hiring you because of. So people should listen to counsel, even though they want to do what they want to do. And it's a life journey, so you'll get about doing it, but still listen to good counsel to make decisions, life decisions. Okay, and you got on back, you finished university, you came into diplomatic service, foreign affairs, and what was the journey? Did you see yourself becoming an ambassador?
I did. Why do I say so? When I was hired, once you get into a system, an organization, even a church, you are privy to know what is going on. You have the inside information. And there they explained about the career path that at least they were pursuing at that time. You join the Ministry of Health, you're there, not Ministry of Health, Ministry of Foreign Affairs for a year or two, then you are trained in diplomacy. They even had arrangements with, I think it was the University of Kenyatta University, or it was very well structured. And then you come back, and thereafter you'll be sent abroad. There was a very clear
roadmap,
career path, and there were a lot of examples of colleagues who had pursued that and were pursuing that. So you could see yourself one day, I'm going to reach the pinnacle of diplomacy by being an ambassador here or there, because there were people that we were looking up to who were walking that path.
So you had role models.
Exactly.
Were there female role models, lots of female role models at that time?
No, they weren't. Most of them were men.
Most of them were men?
Yes.
So was it a lonely walk for you going into foreign affairs and as a woman seeking, if you don't mind, the program is really to inspire women and to show what women have achieved. So that's why we're digging into it.
Right.
So to identify what was it like for a woman, because the woman has to work twice as hard. The woman has to do so much more to be recognized. The woman has to explain herself. The men don't do that.
Yes.
So what was your journey like?
Yes, it's interesting. Yeah, you're putting it like that. I remember when we would have meetings, and not necessarily that in the meeting I'm the most junior officer. I may be at par with my male colleagues, but it'd be, you take the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be, given the secretarial role. And I remember one day I said, but when did we vote that who will do what? And they looked at me, taken aback. Or you attend meetings and then the men folk will say, gentlemen, blah, blah, blah.
No recognition of the woman there.
Then I say, excuse me, through the chair. I'm here and I'm not a man. I know you are covered. I said, but what does that mean? And it was so rife during my time. It would be gentlemen. We're all gentlemen here. And I'm thinking, oh, there's something wrong. And even if I interjected, nobody would care. And so at some point I just, shrug my shoulder and say, okay, it is what it is, and move on. Not let it get under my skin, because it wasn't helping. And I always vowed that one day I would say, oh, ladies, just to get back to them. Yeah, but I never had the courage to do that. And at that time there was an unspoken, it wasn't a rule, but an unspoken expectation, let me put it that way, that female officers in the diplomatic service would be single. But yeah, because when you go to a mission abroad, at least at that time, all the secretaries, the ambassadors, high commissioners, secretaries were female.
Okay.
And most, if not all, or at least the majority, were single. So when I say an officer, I don't mean as the ambassador or high commissioner secretary, but apart from that, other female officers, let me put it that way, I think most of us were single. And it was that, we never actually said it openly, but you all look, it's Miss this, Miss that, Miss this, or maybe a doctor or someone, but it was Miss. And you felt that, is it marriage or is it diplomatic service? Now, I think also maybe one of the reasons that may have been is because the reluctance by the ministry, I'm just speculating, but that's what I think. You have these discussions amongst colleagues. Not wanting to disrupt the family unit.
Okay,
because the man is the head of the family.
Okay.
Now you have appointed his wife to go to country X. What does the man do?
Yes.
He now becomes the house husband. You see, or stays back home. No, so it's a potential source of friction.
Okay.
So I think that's what they were trying to avoid.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because a man would move his family, but a woman, they are looking at and saying, okay, can she make her husband move? Will that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But that was back then. I mean, things have changed so much since.
Now.
Yeah. So I know it's a different ballgame now. That I know for sure. But I just
what was it like climbing up the ladder and eventually going out to become a diplomat?
With me, my progression was fast track because of my illness.
Okay.
I like to say, as bad as cancer is, my journey with it has had a lot of quirky moments, and it has elevated me in a strange way in a lot of interesting ways I would never have thought possible, because of my cancer. I was sent abroad sooner than I should have.
Okay.
Because of the treatment aspect. At that time there was no cancer hospital. I mean, almost no cancer drugs. Exactly. And I spent 11 years or so in the diplomatic service. Just remind me, Pastor, what your question?
We're looking at your journey in the diplomatic service and how it has been, your challenges, and you've come into the challenge, your health challenge, the illness with cancer, which we're going to go into. So you're saying to us that even that expedited your growth.
It did.
It fast-tracked your growth because they had to send you out to get treatment.
Exactly.
Which is, would I say, a very good thing, because we didn't have the facilities locally.
No.
And you being diplomatic service, it afforded you that. And that even brought about you growing faster.
Absolutely.
Tell us about you on finding out you had cancer, because you have survived severally, lymph node cancer and breast cancer. Tell us about that cancer. And you've gone on to you are the founder, and you have stood up for cancer sufferers, to break the stigma, to break the shame. I wonder why we would even look at it in any way but with empathy, but we're looking at shame. So probably you tell us about it. Tell us about finding out you had cancer. What was that like? And what has it been like dealing with cancer?
Yes. It was, how did this journey begin? It began in I think it was my 4th year at university. I discovered a lump. There was a small lump on the side of my neck, which I learned later was an enlarged lymph node. We all have lymph nodes in the body.
Yeah.
And I used to look at it and wonder, and it was painless, whatever. And I would joke with my friends, oh, it's a goiter on the side, and I didn't think much of it. And I remember, as I mentioned earlier, my sister was a nurse. And occasionally, I'd go and see her. I say, oh, there's this lump. Oh, I should have it checked. Yes. Oh, is it growing? I said, yeah. Sometimes I say it's actually getting smaller. It wasn't. Then fast forward to 40, I finished university. I started working, and the lymph nodes, the growth was growing. I kept ignoring it until one day my sister just put her foot down, because I was now staying with her. She said, no, we need to have this checked. You need to have it checked. I said, you're right. So she arranged for me to see a certain doctor who looked at me and checked. It says, okay, and he had just come back from abroad. And he said, right, what we need to do is we need to have a biopsy done. We need to go for surgery. But I think we're looking at the schedule, and this was around November, if I can recall correctly. The earliest date was February the following year.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was 88. So the following year, February 89 was the earliest date. And I said, okay, thanks. I was actually relieved.
You couldn't get a biopsy then?
No, I couldn't, and I wasn't even in a hurry to have that biopsy done, to be honest.
You didn't know what it was?
No. And he didn't seem overly concerned or worried.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're young, illness hasn't been part of your story all this time, even the family, so you're not worried. Life is, you're on a roll, you're at foreign affairs, and you're looking forward to so many exciting things as a young person, or even an older one, but you had now just hit the job market, and I was having a good time. Then in December, one of my workmates, we were 3 of us in an office. He had a very bad cold, the flu, and I picked it up. And I think it hit my lymph nodes, and then now I had lymph nodes, enlarged lymph nodes both sides of my neck, and I was in agony.
It was very painful.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't sleep. And my mother and my sister had gone traveled out of Zambia on holiday. I'd gone to Zimbabwe for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I was alone, and I agonized. It was horrendous. When they came back, and I told my sister, I need this surgery brought forward yesterday. I am in pain. So, being a nurse and being part of the system at the University Teaching Hospital, so I had a biopsy done under local anesthesia. They didn't put me to sleep. And I was told later, the next day or so, that you have, what we have seen is typical of TB of the lymph nodes.
Okay.
So what we are going to do is to put you, I was admitted actually, we will put you on anti-TB drugs. I said, oh, okay. So that's what I'm thinking, right? So, and I think I was given injections. It's been like 30 years now. I was put injections, I think, for a couple of days. But then, interestingly enough, as before I went for my surgery, when the doctors, now it's a different set of doctors now, were looking at my case, I remember a rather flippant remark by one of the doctors saying, well, first of all, he started shaking his head like, oh, I'm so sorry about this situation. And then the other doctor said to him, what is it? AIDS.
You're joking.
I'm not joking. And I'm thinking, what? And just no test had been done. And I'm sitting there. And I'm thinking, okay. So then I was admitted and I had my biopsy done waiting for the results. And then another doctor, a lady doctor actually, she came and said, we are going to do an AIDS test. So I said, okay, that's fine, which they did. And then I think the following day or so, she came to my bedside and she said, we've got your results for the AIDS test results. And I just kept quiet. I looked at her, it was like, yeah, that's negative. I said, okay. Then,
what kind of trauma were you going through with all this going on in your mind?
You have no idea. And I'm 23 years old.
Wow.
And AIDS was at its peak at that time. And I remember the doctor who had jumped to the conclusion that I had AIDS, when he came round doing a ward round and he was with this female doctor, was very empathetic. He flipped through my chart. Negative. Yeah? That's negative. And she said yes. He closed my file and went to the next bed.
You're joking?
That pained me a lot, Pastor.
That's even worse.
I don't know, was he disappointed that I didn't have HIV? I was HIV positive or what?
Because even at that time, people just knowing they were HIV positive, just the mention of it made some people even just lose their lives.
That's what happened. And for a long time, I don't know if I can say I had unforgiveness in my heart, but I certainly didn't want to see him ever again. And if I was to be honest, I mean, I don't think we'll ever see each other again. And I wouldn't say I don't have unforgiveness now. I know I've moved on. But that really pained me, and it bothered me for many, many years, how he could be so
insensitive.
Exactly. And I think the part that, as I said, hurt me the most was it appeared that he was disappointed that his
diagnosis
was wrong.
So his ego was bigger.
That's right.
Than his patient's care.
So then a couple of days later, the results came out, the lab results came out, and I was told, in a roundabout way, he mentioned Hodgkin's lymphoma disease. Have I heard about it? I don't know if I have or haven't, I'm not sure. Okay, but what we thought you had and what the lab results say you have are different. So we have to go back to surgery. We have to take you back into surgery. Because, we are taken aback by what the lab results have said. And I'm thinking, now what do I have?
Wow.
And my mother was in a state. And unbeknownst to me, she went to cry on a friend's shoulder. That she didn't know what was happening to me, and she cried and said, if my daughter has got AIDS, she didn't know this other story with my encounter with the doctor, they should just tell me. So I come to terms with it. So, you go to a friend and you break down and you say all this, and then later, that same friend, as I say later, as in a couple of days, she says, oh, your mother came to me and she was crying, and she's just saying that, she was crying and saying the doctor should tell her if you've got AIDS. And I'm wondering, I felt, a bit like angry that my mother should have jumped to that conclusion. But I understood it later that she didn't know what to do. But I also felt that her friend had betrayed my mother's confidence.
Absolutely.
How? And you're telling me this, I'm still lying in the hospital, and we don't even know what the diagnosis is. So anyway, I went back into surgery, came out, and they even said, look, right now we're stopping all treatment. So go back and then come back within a week. We'll let you know when the results.
So at that time we didn't have any MRIs, any CT scans, nothing like that.
No.
So it was just trial and error, most of it.
Exactly, and really when to confirm a cancer diagnosis, one way of confirmation is through a biopsy, is through the pathologist report. They're taking off some specimen. So I was discharged, went to my sister's place. She had some medical books in a little library. Then I said, what did they say? Hodgkin's, what? And then I read about Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancerous, and I just knew that that's what I had. Because they talked about the symptoms, night sweats, lost sweat. I just knew. And sometimes when you know that you know that you know, I knew that was it. And then I went, I was called, your results are ready, and I was told, this is what you have. Any questions? And I said, yes. Is it fatal? Am I going to die? That's what I asked. He goes, no, who said it was fatal? No, it can be treated. And just those words that it can be treated, it's not necessarily fatal. Pastor, for me, that was the lifeline that I needed and I held on to. Now, the challenge was, we need to stage it. Cancer's got different stages. We don't have the facilities here in this country to stage. When you're talking about 1980, this was 1989. Okay. The nearest stop is Zimbabwe or South Africa. But Zimbabwe at that time, their healthcare was, really top of the range. I worked for Foreign Affairs. All right, I need some time off. Okay. Went to Zimbabwe. I was met and received very well by the Zambian mission in Harare, Zimbabwe. Went, had the CT scan, all that was what I went there for. They staged stage 2B. Came back to Zambia. Stage 2B. Okay. That's very good. Now we know. The drugs were very, very, very limited. They didn't just try to rustle up, what they could. Then I remember one of the doctors, professors, he came to me and he said, you know what, you work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Speak to your employer and ask them if they can send you abroad. Because the government was sending people abroad outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Health, I think 10 a year for 10 or so per year to South Africa, Zimbabwe, and it was costing the government thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So I know I tried that route, maybe indirectly, but it didn't really work. This was so long, Foreign Affairs. And I'm forever grateful to the ministry. It worked out such that there was an opening in Germany. The ambassador, in fact, it's the late ambassador, was spoken to. This is the situation. Are you willing for this lady to come and be an officer? She will work as and when she's okay until she recovers. Yeah. He said, fine. We spoke, him and I. He said, talk to me. What are you going through? I explained. Then he says, you're welcome. Right. He had been new like when he says, let's go and see. This is an opportunity. We don't know where this will all end up. That's how I ended up in Germany. Okay. Started treatment. I had now turned 23 when I started treatment. So the first thing, a month you try to settle down somewhat, and then you go into hospital. And what happens, the Germans, you go with all your files and everything. Yeah. They look, okay. We are starting all the tests from, my goodness, to be sure that what they have found, where you're coming from in Africa, is correct. Could be a misdiagnosis. Yeah. It could be. Yeah. So I had to go through the biopsies. They biopsied my lymph nodes. They biopsied my liver. They removed. I had in the spine. They removed spinal fluid. It was 6 weeks of testing. Tests, and they said at the end of the day, yeah. It's exactly correct. Okay. So now we have to start treatment. And treatment number one is to remove your spleen. It's an organ in the body that helps fight infection. So hence some of these things, because trying every which way to keep the immunity up. Because what they said was that from their experience, the type of cancer that I had, Hodgkin's disease, if it reoccurs, it tends to reoccur in the spleen, and by the time it is discovered, it's late.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember one of the doctors, in fact, I think I've heard 2-3 times. I mean, no cancer is good. Because sometimes people say it's a good cancer, it's a better cancer. I don't subscribe to that. But I've been told 2-3 times by the medical profession to say, we know cancer is bad, it sucks. But if you are going to have cancer of the lymph nodes. It's one of the most amenable to treatment if caught early. Even if not really caught that early, but it's so sensitive to chemotherapy that the success rates of being completely cured are like very, very high, like over 90%. Okay. So I was in a good space and I was young and I didn't know, oh, so I'm young, what does it mean? But the treatment can be very harsh. So all those factors put together. And within a year, it was 1989, 1990, after the chemotherapy or the treatments, radiation, all that put together, I was told 1 year later that I was 100% cancer-free.
And then tell us, how come we now have breast cancer? How did that happen if we're 100%?
Yeah. It's a situation whereby it is not unusual, not that it's that common, but it's not unusual that patients who receive radiation treatment to the chest area at a young age they're exposed. Yes, radiation can cause cancer.
Yes.
So it is not unusual for that exposure to radiation to cause a recurrence of that cancer or a secondary cancer, a new cancer. Now what the doctors do, they weigh to say it might happen, it might not happen, but giving this person radiation now increases the chances of it not coming back at all, rather than saying, oh, it may come back in 20 years time, 30 years time. No. So yeah, because more often than not it doesn't happen, but sometimes it happens. So when I had breast cancer in 2015, my 50th year, my jubilee year, my cancer doctor, one of my cancer doctors, he said to me, yes, your history, you had cancer 23 years, 20 odd years ago at that time. Did you have radiation? I said yes. He said, oh, okay. So yeah.
So it took long for the radiation to show itself, manifest.
That's one. For me, that's one story, and and I'm sure that's part of it.
Okay.
For me too, I think now, recalling I think my lifestyle may have contributed. What do I mean by that? Yes, I do engage in physical activity, but sometimes it's not always consistent. I may be physically active, for a year, then I go back to once a week or once a month, not be exactly doing that. Then diet, I love meat. I always eat meat with vegetables, and I try to eat healthily. But sometimes you may overindulge, and I think and then you have excess weight. According to, you're overweight by 2 kilos. Say, what is 2 kilos? Not knowing that this excess fat can turn into or can transform itself and develop characteristics of the female hormone of estrogen. And estrogen is a factor, excess estrogen, that can trigger breast cancer. So it was only later when I began to, put together the dots. I said, I think even my lifestyle to a degree could have contributed to my breast cancer diagnosis.
What is it like, therefore? We don't know. Nobody except you've been through it. What is it like suffering cancer twice and beating it twice? What goes through your mind? What's your life like? What is that woman going through cancer and surviving it twice? Which led you to go on to found the Zambian Cancer Society to support other people and to fight against, or rather remove, the stigma and the shame that is often associated with it. Can you let us into that space? What's it like for you? What shame, what stigma is associated with it?
When I was first diagnosed, I mean, I was very young, and for me it was, yes, you have cancer, and not really understanding the gravity of the illness. Let me put it that way, because cancer was not common in Zambia or in Africa, generally speaking.
At that time.
And then you're told, okay, this is how we're going to treat you. So you feel, okay, it's an illness, I'm going to be treated and I'll be okay. Which essentially is what happened. Yeah, right? I went to Germany, I was treated, and I continued with my life for many, many years. Cancer was at the back of my mind. Because I'd been there, done that. I was not on any treatment, I was done. Then then the side effects, not really even appreciating the gravity of it, but how it might affect your body as you age. But that's really at the back of your mind. I'm a high flyer abroad, and even where I was in Europe, yes, cancer was there, but because of the facilities, it was not considered really so much that, you're going to die, because they treat it in good time. And for example, my GP would send out a reminder every year to go for for pap smear, cervical cancer screening. So they're on top of things. Yeah. So I didn't really feel anything too badly about it when I was abroad. It's when I came back to Zambia in 2000, and I just had now a moment whereby I'm saying, what's next with my life? I'm back, I'm at the ministry, and I felt just a sense of discontentment and dissatisfaction with my life. And the fact that I had cancer, that I had cancer all those years ago, just came back to haunt me. I don't know if that's the right words, but I began to recollect my whole life, because I'm back now, and where I started from, and I started from the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I left because of cancer, and somehow cancer just kept coming into my environment. Certain friends you are close to decided that because you had cancer, even though you don't have it anymore, just wanting to distance themselves from me.
Did they feel it was communicable? Why did they want to distance themselves?
I really can't say.
You can't speak on their behalf.
Yeah, maybe they thought our friendship, especially that I was back. Maybe because I was back now, not that I was a liability. Exactly. I think that played a part. So I began to feel. I've done a lot of thinking over the years.
Okay.
I began to develop a sense of resentment towards my cancer. Yeah.
Like it was robbing you.
Yes,
of your relationships,
exactly,
your life.
Exactly. Of my health.
Of your health.
Yeah. I began to resent it. And what happened? I made a decision, and I made a decision that I would take revenge on cancer. I would get even. Okay. And this would come back to haunt me later. In case I forget to get back to it, please bring me back to it.
So you chose to fight cancer now. Cancer,
yes.
I resent you now.
Yeah.
I'm taking action against you.
But I realized later that decision was not made, I don't know if I can say good faith, it was made from a place of pain.
Anger.
Exactly.
Anger. Pain.
Exactly.
So in itself it was
problem.
negative.
Exactly.
And could trigger cancer itself.
Exactly. I spoke to a friend and I said, I'm getting even. Just taken so much away from me, it has robbed me. And then she said, why don't you set up the Zambian Cancer Society? Because I didn't even know in what form I was going to get even. In fact, I was thinking that perhaps I would go abroad, and find a job abroad, because I was coming from being abroad and cancer wasn't really in your face as such at that time in Zambia. Then she said, set up your own cancer society. Why don't you?
Can I say something before
Yes,
you go far?
yes.
How much, lots of people don't know about that, I think. How much does bitterness, offenses, anger do to, are those causes of cancer? What do they do? Because lots of women live with bitterness, with pain, with hurt, and they don't let go. Can such things cause cancer?
Well, I think research says that indirectly, because...
So it's psychosomatic,
exactly, indirectly, yes. Because it may lead you to certain habits that might trigger cancer.
Okay.
You may decide, I'm going to start smoking, or I'm going to not care what I eat, I'll just eat anything, or I'm going to be inactive, or it will lead to poor sleep. And all these, can be triggers.
Okay. Please go ahead.
All right. So what?
Because I've heard a lot of people
Right.
tell us that your state of mind and anger and bitterness, I've heard some doctors say too, and all the bile will cause cancer.
Exactly. I think indirectly it does. It could, rather.
Okay.
What happened is, she said to me, why don't you set up your own? And those words from this friend of mine, a childhood friend, I can't really explain them, but they ignited something in me. I mean, I was so, like, yes, but I was afraid. I said, am I worthy? Can I? What? Should I? They touched my soul. It's difficult to explain. That night, when I went home, that evening I prayed. And I'm not really like the most prayerful person, a prayer warrior. I've got a problem. The first person I'll call is Judy because she'll pray for me night and day. No. But I prayed and I said, God, if you want me to set up a cancer organization, give me a sign. That was my prayer, Pastor. And I left it at that. I think 2-3 days later, I'll never forget. I went to, around lunchtime, to my brother's house. We saw him coming early.
Yeah.
I wanted to see him over lunchtime. So when I went to his house, so they was taking a nap. I said, okay, let me read the paper whilst I'm waiting. So I'd already read the Post newspaper earlier, so I didn't read that. Then I went to Times of Zambia. I read through, put it away. Then I got the Daily Mail. I read. On the front page, it was written, something to the effect, cancer patients need your help.
Okay.
Turn to let's say page 4, page 5.
Is that not that's the biggest? God is telling you the answer on the front page, headline.
And it's because I'd gone to my brother's house. Otherwise I would not have seen that paper. When I saw it, you would have thought I would have quickly gone to page 4.
So
page
nobody
5.
else would have gotten that because you prayed.
Yes.
That came out big for you.
Exactly. I read the whole of the front page, the whole of second. Eventually, I went to page 4. I was like almost, oh no, what's happening? I went to that page, it was 4 or 5, I read the story. And he talked about a certain cancer organization that was in existence at that time that had raised funds to help the children. That was their focus. And their chairperson at that time was the late Professor Chintu. And they were making a donation that bought drugs. And I resonated with Professor Chintu because before I left Zambia, all those years ago, he was the doctor. And he was the one who wrote the transfer letter or I don't know what, but he was my doctor before I left. And I said, this is the sign. I didn't tell anybody. The following day, I went to University Teaching Hospital and I said, I'm looking for Professor Chintu. I didn't know where to find him, but I knew I was going to find him. I eventually found his office. He was out of town. I left a note. And that was it, Pastor. I said, I've done my part. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. Hi, Udi. It was, hi, sweetheart. I said, hi. How are you? Fine. This is Professor. I said, hi, Prof. I got your note. Come. When would you like to come? We talk. And we talk about this organization. That's how it started. And then I continued with this organization for 7 years. And for me, along the way, I've learned that some of these numbers are very significant. 7 years I was with them. And I remember when I joined them, I said to God, because I kept occasionally I would hear a voice, set up your own, set up your own.
Okay.
And I said, look here. And I'm literally having a conversation. You think, who is she talking to? When I said, show me a sign if you want me to set up my own, it's because I didn't know one existed.
Okay.
If
there's one existing, why are you stressing me? There's already one existing.
So that's what that voice came and went over 7 years. Until one day I said, you know what? If you really want me to set up my own organization, remember I'm saying this again.
Yeah.
I need to be trained. Yeah, because I joined Avon, just a volunteer, I need to be trained because literally we're dealing with life and death issues. So I need training. I started my quest for training. 2004, that's when I started my quest to train. I came across a training that was only for the Pacific region. All this online. I said, no, this won't work. Then I discovered that the American Cancer Society, at that time they had a virtual university, so it's the American Cancer Society University, were offering training in NGO management, so one could apply. So I wrote to them to say, please, I'd like to apply. I think 1 month later, they got back to me, oh, thank you very much for your application, but no, we've got priority areas, and yours is not one of them, but thank you for your interest. And for me, that was it. Mm-hmm. I forgot about it, continued my life. 2004, mark my words, Pastor. 2005, I get an email. Dear UD Soko, from the American Cancer Society University, we refer to your application.
When you've forgotten about it.
Oh my goodness. So we wish to inform you that the next training will be in 2006. Yes, in 2006 in Washington, D.C., the country of my birth, the city of my birth. And where we're offering training, all expenses paid, and then there will be to culminate into an international cancer conference, so you can apply from October. And then this year. They said October, but every other month I'm trying to apply. It makes no sense. Come October, I applied. January 2006, I get an email. Your application has been successful. We're looking forward to seeing you in July. And I just want to say something quickly here, because I had to apply for a visa.
Yeah.
So I went to the American Embassy, of course, as you do. And, with all the papers, I'm going for this conference, etc. And then the visa officer there, a youngish man, he said to me, oh, so you had cancer of the lymph nodes, Hodgkin's disease. I said, yes, I did. No, he said, no, you had cancer. So I said, yes, I did. And you survived. I said, yes, I did. Then he said, oh, what cancer did you have? I said, oh, I had Hodgkin's disease. As I'm about to explain that, cancer of the lymph nodes, he said, so did I.
Wow.
When I was 18.
Wow.
Then I said, and you survived? He says, yes, I did. So come this afternoon for a visa, and then
that was the interview.
I tell you my story. It's like a movie. Yeah. So I went to America.
You should make a movie.
I should, eh?
Yes.
Yeah. Went to America, and wow, it was my 40th. I was in my 40s, and that's where my niece is a pastor. I started the journey, and she was very, very prayerful. We prayed to that point. Then I met God. I became born again during my stay in America.
Okay.
Yeah, through my niece was my pastor of the prayers, and I know because for years I had been having a recurring nightmare, which from that moment ended through prayers. Yeah, so it was very, very, very pivotal. And I said it's my 40th year, and I know these numbers in the Bible, the meaning of 40.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! And the power of God and prayer, His faithfulness. He called me in 2000, and now this is 2006. Been with me along the journey, but between 2000 and 2006, and when I eventually started the Islamic Society in 2009, and here I am in 2021. God sees the end from the beginning. In 2000, who talked about cancer? There was no cancer hospital.
No.
But now we have one.
We have one.
And he has placed me in such a position. Who would have guessed that things would have unfolded? It's only through God. It's only through God. That's what I've said. And people say, why do you do the things that you do? I said, it is God who has assigned me this role. The day God says to me, I'm releasing you. It's like when I had breast cancer, 2015. I said, God, I think I'm releasing myself. But because I was so afraid, I said, okay, no, I'll wait to hear from you because you told me this very categorically. So when it's time to move on, you will tell me as well. I don't want to guess and think and, maybe.
He actually doesn't release you, so in case you're still waiting, it's for life. He calls you for life.
Yes, it.
So if you called you, you can release you. But him...
He called me, Pastor. I've explained how.
That means he doesn't release. Yeah. So sorry, doesn't fire anybody. So tell us about Cancer Society. Now you have formed Cancer Society in 2009.
Yeah.
Now you are getting cancer in 2015. How is this working in your mind?
It broke me.
So you're helping people 2009, 10, 11, 12. Then in 15 you are hit again.
That was not a good year. It should have been, because it was my jubilee year. The previous year, Zambia had celebrated turning 50. Yeah, all that. I said, next year it's my year, 2015. I'm turning 50. And my peers, many of them were turning 50 as well. I was born in November. Others January, February. So all the excitement and the hype, was a part of it. Then I'm diagnosed in South Africa with early stage breast cancer. I just said, I wasn't amused, I wasn't happy. I was mad with God, by the way. Nobody else. And I said, I felt he had betrayed me. And when I hear people like, you're strong, you're what, I always say that, first of all, I'm a human being. Please, right. I bleed if you cut me. I've got feelings, emotions. Just that God who sustains me, gives me supernatural, I would say, ability to withstand certain
grace
things.
To withstand.
Exactly. Yes, I like that. Grace. Yeah, that's a good one. Grace. Otherwise, and if I didn't know in my soul that I have been called by God, and I'm not just saying because for the sake of, I think I would have packed my bags and left, because I've gone through a lot of pain. It's not easy to set up an organization and to hustle and then to say, oh, please, can you donate some money? So, they close the door, they get lost kind of thing. You say, but why do I need this
hassle? It's not for you.
Exactly.
It's for people you don't even know.
That's it. I said, why do I need this stress? But because I know it is from God, and He has been faithful. I've never lacked. He has been faithful. 2015, and he said early stage breast cancer. So now I just said, I need chemotherapy, because I just said, oh no, not that roller coaster. Yes, you will need treatment for a year. You're going to have to remove your breast so that I can have reconstruction, right? Okay. But for me, it was the chemotherapy. I just felt my life had been put on hold, and I said, now I'm back to 1989 when I was first diagnosed. Yeah. It was like yesterday. All the memories
came back.
Oh my gosh. I said, God, where are you? You called me for what? What do you want from me? I felt
So people that are called are still human beings.
First and foremost, we're human beings.
They still go through all what everybody goes through. They are not superheroes.
No. And I felt betrayed, and I also felt like an imposter in a way. I said, for years I've been counseling cancer patients. For years I've tried to be the voice and the face of cancer in a way, but it has hit me again, and I'm buckling at the knees. Was I able to do all that I did because my own memory of the first cancer was, way back, and I was 100% okay, so, it was easier to say, hang in there. But now it's me. I said, am I really cut out to do this? Now you start beginning to doubt yourself. And
so the counselor doesn't have counsel for herself.
Exactly. And interesting you should say that, because during this journey, this battle with the breast cancer, I met the former First Lady, Dr. Christine Kaseva, whom I met, I know. We met in one of the shops. And she said, "Are you the head? You have breast cancer?" And I said, "Yeah, Mom." And we talked a bit. Then she said, "Who is looking after you?" And I found that to be so touching, because that was a question that was rarely asked. It was, "You are strong.
Yeah.
Why you get through it? You're strong." She said, "Who is looking after you? Who is taking care of you?" And I don't know if it's because she's a doctor or what, but I think she understood that, hey, this is a patient. This one also needs to be nurtured and looked after.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I've got people around me," and so on. And then she said, "Yes, okay, no, that's very good." I withdrew from God, praying. I said, because it really hurt me. But occasionally, this voice, God understands, you're having a tantrum.
Yeah. He knows where you are.
Remember that it has been caught early. Remember that there's treatment. Remember, even what you're going through, the side effects are not as bad as before. Remember, you're at a good place, that the chances of surviving are very high. Rationally, it makes sense, but emotionally, psychologically, you don't want to accept.
Yeah.
And I was going down. I know emotionally, mentally, I was going. Physically, I was fine. I mean, not fine, but I was recovering and all that as well. But as we were talking about the mental, and I knew that if I didn't get to grips, even my physical healing was going to be affected. So on the 1st of December 2015, I made a decision that I needed to get back on track.
Okay.
And that's when I started going back to the gym and socializing more. Socializing, you lose your head. You don't want people in your space. And one thing for me is that when I was going through my treatment, breast cancer treatment I was talking about in particular, people would want, "Oh, can we come and see you? Can we come and see you? Come." I didn't. I said no. Why? I said, because I'm not in a good space. Once I go to the hospital and I have my treatment, I'm down for about a week or two. Then I have to go again for my next treatment. When
people don't understand the fatigue that comes on your body when you go through that.
Exactly. I said, I don't want you, because I have to. I just can't deal. I was very selective about whom I brought into my inner circle to see me when I am at my lowest. And I'll give an example that reminded me of why I do what I do. There's a friend who came. She's a good friend. Came into my inner circle, and you know what? She saw me, and because we're so close, I didn't mind how I looked. I had no hair. I was in a state, but that's where
so
was
this wasn't a movie. This was real life. Because most of us watch the movie. You were living it, and your friend is seeing you like that, probably for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And it was unfiltered. You know what she said to me? "Why are you looking like this?" That hurt me so much. And I said, this is why I don't want people to come and visit me. But this is a good close friend. But she was so taken aback. But I said, this is me. She said, "But why are you looking like this?"
So we don't understand to empathize what sufferers go through.
Yeah. So eventually I reconciled with God, who never left me. It's me who left. Yeah, and He has been faithful. Always. And I think he of course, He gets me and understands me, that I have moments. So I've become even more empathetic to cancer patients and caregivers. And the role that I do, I don't take it for granted. I don't. He's called me for this purpose. Why?
Calling.
I don't know.
It's a calling. Yeah. Tell us, as we wrap up, 1 hour goes very fast, and we are over an hour already. You have been carrying, from 89, you started going through cancer. From 2009, you have tried to be the face and the voice and the shoulder and the counselor for cancer patients in Zambia through the Zambia Cancer Society. What's next? What do you see next as we wrap this up for your life? Is your life basically all wrapped in cancer now, or do you see a life for UD beyond cancer?
I'll answer that 2 ways as we conclude. One, if there had been voting back in the day and we were voting to say, who would you choose to set up the Zambian Cancer Society and what it entails. You know, you have to go out, meet with people, not the illness itself, but the management
the
of
work
it.
Of
and
it.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have put my name forward. Why do I say that? Because I am introvert number one.
Okay.
That is why when I don't like rebelled and said I'm going to set it up and do this and do that, unconsciously I felt that I was, not even unconsciously, consciously, I'll tell you why. I felt that I was the least
qualified.
Exactly. I always think about Gideon, who was hiding, and then
God found him out.
Yeah, said, you man of mighty valor. Who, me? Joseph. I believed for many years that I was least qualified until my pastor, if I may mention his name,
Please
Pastor Walker of Miracle Life Family Church, one day in church, there was the sermon and talked about how sometimes we feel that we are not good enough. Then he said, who said so? That day I had an aha moment. Then I said, but who said I'm not good enough? Yeah. God is the one who has called me. And despite me not fitting the bill, here I am. And in his infinite wisdom, he knows why he has chosen me. Because me, I don't know why, to be honest.
God says he uses the foolish things. That's exactly. The base things.
Exactly. To confound the wise. Absolutely. Me being called to do what I do, God knows why he did it and why I'm doing what I do up to this point. But now he called me in 2020. This is 2021. Is it 20 plus years? I feel I'm at a crossroads. I know my life is still going to be with cancer, but I feel it is more than that. I feel it's the bigger picture of health and wellness. Because cancer is heavy, it's the disease, it's all that negativity that, one associates with the cancer diagnosis. But for me, I would like to promote health and wellness.
So you want to go into prevention?
Lifestyle
preventing.
Yes, that is what I would like to do as on one part. And also, life prevention for some of us. Yes, we can prevent other cancers or recurrence, but we have had it, so it has happened. But then also life after cancer. Living a life where you still feel fulfilled, you still feel worthy, you still feel you can contribute. So how all these pieces are going to come together, I'm not sure yet. But I know that I'm at a crossroads to promote health and wellness in whatever space one is at.
So your calling is evolving.
Yes.
And now you're looking at, so he called you over 20 years ago, and you came into it as a sufferer and someone that healed, and you're helping. Now you're looking at life after. Mm-hmm. So what full life do we live after? And this could be preventive as well as, if you like, call it curative, because yes, you are physically cured, but psychologically, life, spiritually, how do we live a full life?
Exactly. And there's some instances, Pastor, where cancer or any disease or situation is the end result is it will pass on. You understand, we're all going to pass on, but you have got this chronic disease or this illness, what next? How best can you live what time you have left on earth? I don't have the answer, and that is why when people sometimes say, what words of encouragement, what do you have to say to other cancer patients out there? I have never been able to fully answer that properly. Why? It's because cancer has got different stages. Someone who is got early stage and someone who is terminal. It's not the same
totally
message.
Different.
Exactly. So I really don't know. So it's the whole life, the human being, how to live a life on purpose or fully. I'm not sure. I'm still having these conversations with God and with myself.
So you're still evolving.
I'm still evolving.
And we should still expect more to come out of you.
Absolutely.
Yudi, I want to thank you. You have been a fighter. You were called for this. Mm-hmm. That means even when you were born and they were giving you a name and unilaterally declaring independence against cancer now and saying, cancer, I've had enough of you, and cancer is being defeated because you are saying, I can live beyond you, totally even after you. This is the worst you can do. but I can live better and do better. You have fought the fight, and now you're fighting for others, and you're helping others. You got into a space that probably women were sufferers, but not a woman standing up to say, hey, I can be the face and a voice, not just for women, but for everybody. And you stood up for Zambia, and you've been standing, and I'm sure your shoulders are very broad, and God has given you grace. So thank you for carrying the plight of cancer patients, to remove the stigma and the shame. And thank God we're more educated now, so we can empathize more and support more, and not to misdiagnose and cause more pain. So we really thank you and celebrate you. And this story, I believe, would not just help somebody that is going through cancer, but somebody else that is thinking that, is this the finality of my life? And we pray that your story will keep evolving, and you will keep being relevant to people that need you, that you've been called to. We really are so grateful. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, viewers, we want to thank you. Time flies so fast. Can you imagine? Yudi has been supporting cancer patients from 2009. She went to school to learn it, and it took her 7 years, and she got on to setting it up. And over 20 years now, she has been standing, supporting, fighting. She went through it herself, and she's beaten it twice. And we believe that she's yet to do the best work of hers yet, which is not just dealing with the issue of cancer, but living a life beyond cancer. We thank you for joining us today and hearing the story of another great Zambian leading woman who is in the area fighting against cancer. We look forward to you joining us tomorrow for yet another woman who is doing great things in another area of Zambian fabric of society, representing the women in leadership, flying the flag and saying, women, we can do it. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us today. Have a pleasant evening. God bless you. Good night. Good night, Yudi.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.